Welcome to the Albuquerque Journal's premier high school sports show, Prep Central, with your host, James Yodice. This show is presented by Western New Mexico University.
Hey everyone, welcome to Preps Central, the Albuquerque Journal's high school sports podcast. I'm James Yodice. I am the high school sports editor at the Albuquerque Journal. Welcome. We are, this is our third podcast of the season following our preseason preview, and then we did one after week one, and now we're dropping in after week two, and we're going to talk about a few things today. Chiefly, we're going to talk about Wk2. I want to get some of that out of the way at the top, but we're also going to talk about some of the other key games from last week. We're going to go over some of our top stars on the Journal's poll for week two, and then we're going to talk about week three games coming up, games that interest me, games that I think are worth your time. So this is the one Friday night of the year I don't cover prep football. I'm actually going to be out at the Metro Soccer Championships on Friday night. I will be monitoring, of course, everything that's going on, but Metro Soccer is usually the one Friday when I'm off of football. So, matter of fact, I don't have a game until Saturday this week. So let's jump into it. Many of you, as you watch me here, it's Wednesday afternoon. Many of you already know that Wk2 went to Flagstaff, Arizona last weekend to play a very strong team from Phoenix named Pinnacle, a 6A team in Phoenix like Wk2. Pinnacle is about 2,600 kids, I was told. Wk2 is about 1,850, so Pinnacle quite a bit bigger enrollment-wise. And they did have quite a few more kids on the sideline. I went to this game in Flagstaff the other night. And, of course, by now you almost certainly know Wk2 won this game in double overtime, 39-32. It was a very strange night, for three quarters, maybe even 3.5 quarters. There was not a lot going on in this game. I wouldn't describe it as great football. There were a lot of penalties in this game, many of them by Pinnacle, who played kind of undisciplined from time to time and got themselves into some trouble. But Wk2's offense didn't get a ton going. They were moving the ball here and there with some success, but they weren't having much success in terms of getting on the scoreboard. Wk2 spotted Pinnacle 12 points in the first 5 minutes of the game, including a pick six thrown by Cam Dyer. He was hit just as he threw it. Probably should have just eaten it. Got returned for 23 yards. 5 minutes into the game, it was 12-0 Pinnacle. And Wk2 looked completely out of sorts and not at all like the Wk2 we're used to. You know, this was a different stage for them, playing a big team from out of state. But Wk2 got back into it. They got a field goal at the end of the third quarter. Near the end of the first quarter, they scored a touchdown, Cam Dyer touchdown on the first play of the second quarter. So it was 12-10. That's the score. That was the score at halftime. We had a couple of rain delays once halftime started, and then the game officials, in conjunction with the two head coaches, decided to cut the final two quarters from 12 minutes to 8 minutes. They wanted to get Wk2 on the road. They were concerned about more lightning strikes. Keeping Wk2 there so late, it really would have been tough for them to make it work. So we ended up playing a 40-minute game as opposed to 48. It was a little bit unusual. Pinnacle scored near the end of the third quarter to go up 18-10. Pinnacle scored on a long touchdown run with 2:07 to go in the fourth quarter to go up 25-10. And it looked like Wk2 was done. I mean, they hadn't scored but 10 points in 38 minutes of football. And sure enough, Cam Dyer, Wk2's great quarterback, the Gatorade Player of the Year from last year, busts a 76-yard touchdown run with 54 seconds left, I think. That makes the score 25-17 for Pinnacle. Then Wk2 onside kicks, gets it. It ricochets off one of the up men for Pinnacle. Wk2 pounces on it. They got to go 52 yards in about 45 seconds or so, which they do. They get a big pass play down the right sideline to get to the 10-yard line. Cam Dyer took it to the 2, and then they lined up Mason Posa, their all-state linebacker, in the shotgun formation on second down and goal from the 2. This is something Wk2 has been working on very quietly. Coach Brandon Back told me. And so they direct snapped to Mason, who ran it in from the 2. That made it 25-23, and then Wk2 got a 2-point pass from Cam Dyer to Tanner Montano to make it 25-all and force overtime in this game. And the game really started to get interesting there in the last 3 minutes of regulation. And then the overtimes were really crazy. Pinnacle went first, and scored on a 4th and goal from the 17. Running back coming out of the backfield, La Cueva just lost him. Just didn't have anybody covering him. It was a wide open receiver, an easy touchdown. So Pinnacle went ahead 32-25. In the first overtime, La Cueva came back and scored. Cameron Dyer threw to Tanner Montano for a touchdown to make it 32-31. La Cueva lined up to go for 2. They were going to go for the win. Then they got hit with a false start. So they changed their mind, kicked the PAT, which they did. That made it 32-all after the first overtime. La Cueva went first. You get first down and goal from the 10 in overtime. La Cueva went first in the second overtime, and Cam Dyer eventually scored on a 4-yard run to make it 39-32. And then Pinnacle, Mason Posa had a big sack on first down. There was a penalty in there, and a couple of passes from the 30-yard line. 3rd and goal, 4th and goal were incomplete, and La Cueva clinches the win. So it was not great football for 3.5 quarters, and then it was tremendous football for the last few minutes of the 4th quarter and both overtimes. But at the end of the day, La Cueva wins a game, one of the most important regular season wins they've ever had. They've never played a team from outside New Mexico before. They've never traveled that kind of distance to play a powerhouse from a neighboring state. And La Cueva had been wanting to play a really good team from a neighboring state, Texas, maybe the Denver area, Phoenix, and they finally found a team in Pinnacle, which was in the state championship game in Arizona 2 years ago. Pinnacle was a 4 seed in the state playoffs in Arizona last year, lost in the quarterfinals. So they found a really good program to pair up with, and this proves to be a really memorable and important win for La Cueva. As I noted in a column that ran on Tuesday morning in the Journal, this win for La Cueva, as important as it is for the Bears, might even have been more important for the entire state and its reputation than it was for La Cueva individually. So often we hear that New Mexico's best teams can't compete with the best teams from other states, like the Denver metro area or the Phoenix metro area, Dallas, and certainly Dallas is definitely true. I don't think anybody questions that. But La Cueva finally had a chance to go, and a couple of players told me, kind of put New Mexico on the map a little bit. I think that's true to a certain degree. I think Tanner Montano from La Cueva, their junior speedster, told me, he's like, nobody thought we were going to win this game. So it was something for La Cueva to prove. They proved a very big point in this game, for not just for their program, but they scored one for New Mexico prep football. We take a beating here. We do. We always do. We don't produce a whole lot of Division I kids compared to neighboring states, compared to Colorado, Texas, Arizona. We don't produce nearly as many Division I kids as any of those states do. So psychologically, this was a very big win for La Cueva. It helps New Mexico's reputation as a whole, and I think everybody should be thankful for that. Now, as far as La Cueva individually, how much it helps La Cueva, it's hard to say. As I wrote in my column on Tuesday, so much will depend on how Pinnacle does. If Pinnacle goes out and has a great season, then this win by La Cueva will look even better. If Pinnacle goes out and has a subpar or average season, it'll be tough to assign a whole lot of credit for this win for La Cueva. So I think it's in La Cueva's best interest that Pinnacle go out and have a big season. I think it will add some shine to this win down the road. It won't mean much in terms of New Mexico seeding or selection or anything like that, but one thing it does is cement La Cueva is the team to beat in 6A. There's no question. But it was a memorable weekend. It was the first time in my entire career I've ever covered a high school event outside of New Mexico. It was the first time an APS school had played a team from a neighboring state in 52 years, and the first time in 46 years since an APS team played someone from outside New Mexico. I believe I mentioned this in a podcast not too long ago. Valley High had played Chihuahua, Mexico in 1977 and 78. But it was 72. 1972 was the last time an APS team played a team in a neighboring state. So this was a big deal. It was the first time any powerhouse from New Mexico had played a team from Arizona since, I think, 2010. Rio Rancho played South Point Catholic out of Tucson. And almost all of the 6A programs in Arizona are in Phoenix. South Point is one of the few. I think there are only one or two outside of Phoenix, and that is one of them. So it had been quite a while since anybody from New Mexico, especially Albuquerque, had gone and paired itself off with a really good team from Arizona. So, La Cueva scores points for itself. They score points for New Mexico. And La Cueva's two best players, Cam Dyer, who I think had close to 400 combined yards, finished with close to 400 combined yards passing and rushing, and Mason Posa on defense, who was, especially at the end of this game, was unblockable and unstoppable. He just took over on defense, and I mean, Pinnacle could do nothing about it or him. Mason was just he already plays with such a high motor, and he took it to another notch and played some of the best football I have ever seen him play, especially against a team that even Coach Brandon back from La Cueva said had no real apparent weaknesses. And this was a good team. They had speed, they had size, they had skill position athletes, they had experience like La Cueva. So when you put all that together, La Cueva wins the game in double overtime. It was a great setting in Flagstaff, great crowd, surprisingly great crowd under the circumstances, and it proves to be a really memorable experience for La Cueva.
Education and training at Western New Mexico University is accessible from every corner of the land of enchantment, providing limitless opportunities for success for more than a century. And now, through the New Mexico Opportunity Scholarship, tuition and fees are covered for anyone looking to start or start over. Along with free tuition, books are always included for every WNMU student, assuring your only worry is how far you can actually go. Lift off toward your future and endless potential at WNMU today.
Okay, let's talk about some of the other key games that we had in week 2. We will start with the game I was at on Friday night out of Community Stadium. Las Cruces High, which is the team I'm already on record saying I thought was the second best team in 6A starting the year behind La Cueva. Las Cruces may end up being the second best team, by the end of the year or later in the regular season. They're not that right now. Las Cruces came up. They were up 21-7 at halftime. Actually, their defense pitched a shutout. It was a pick six that Volcano scored on. And Volcano, actually, after being shut out by La Cueva in the first week, Volcano Vista started the season with 4 scoreless quarters. And Volcano was down 21-7 in the second half. Volcano comes back and wins the game 27-24. It was really thrilling at the end. Cruces kicked a field goal with about midway through the fourth quarter to go up 24-21. And then Volcano scores late, with just like a minute left to go up 27-24. They missed the PAT, so Las Cruces had a chance to kick a field goal at the end and perhaps tie the game and get to overtime. Las Cruces went down the field, and with 5 seconds left, they lined up for a 44-yarder. And the kid hit it, and it hit just off the bottom of the right goalpost. A foot to the left, and that game would have gone to overtime. So it was a great win for Volcano, who had not had anything going in that rain-shortened game against La Cueva and didn't have much going offensively in the first half against Las Cruces. And Volcano ends up coming back to win this game 27-24. And I think, Volcano announced itself as a team that people should take seriously, and that if La Cueva is Tier 1, then who's Tier 1A? Well, it's Centennial, it's Cruces, Rio Rancho, Cleveland, maybe now Volcano Vista. So Las Cruces, a tough night for them. You don't blow 2 touchdown leads like this if you have championship aspirations. So Las Cruces is going to be licking their wounds, I think, a little bit. And they have no time to really worry about it. They got to play Rio Rancho on Friday. They play Cleveland next Thursday at home at the Field of Dreams. So Cruces has 2 more big games coming up, so we'll see how they rebound. That'll be interesting going forward. Other games I wanted to talk about real quick from week 2. Hobbs, which lost at Lovington in week 1. I believe the score was 31-22. Hobbs comes back and beats Artesia 44-40 in week 2. That is a great rebound win for Coach Ken Stevens and the Eagles. And that is a win that's going to catch everybody's attention. Hobbs is one of those teams I had kind of in that second tier with teams like maybe Sandia and Volcano when the season started. Of course, this is always fluid, but Hobbs gets a really big win over Artesia, bounces back, especially after Lovington beats Hobbs in the first week. Rio Rancho won big at Clovis. Rio Rancho's 2-0. Centennial is 2-0. They played both their games here in the metro area. They beat Cleveland in week 1. They beat Atrisco Heritage last week 54-27. So Centennial plays its home opener on Saturday. We're going to talk about that in the last segment. West Mesa is 2-0. The post-Elijah Brody era. The Mustangs overcame St. Pius, a really good 4A St. Pius team in week 1. And West Mesa went down on Saturday afternoon to the Field of Dreams, and Cruces beat Mayfield 41-33. So West Mesa off to a really strong 2-0 start. Wanted to mention them. Bernalillo in 4A scored a late touchdown and went for two and beat Highland 20-19. So Bernalillo has opened the year, a 4A team beating 5A Valley and 5A Highland. And Bernalillo has a huge game coming up on Friday. We're going to talk about that here in a minute at the end of the show. But the Spartans are off to a good start, and so they're going to be a team we're going to keep on our radar. Ruidoso, I was down in Ruidoso a couple of weeks ago to do a big feature about how the football team is trying to help heal along with the community. You know, Ruidoso had a couple of kids lose their homes to fire, just as so many residents did back in June when the fires were very close to just burning the entire city of Ruidoso. Ruidoso had a tough outing in week one at Eunice. No shame there. Eunice is really good. Ruidoso came home for its home opener last week against Tularosa and lost a very close game under a field goal. That would have been a nice story for the village of Ruidoso. They've endured a lot, and the football team will certainly give them some things to keep them distracted as these people rebuild from fire and from flood. It's such a beautiful place, and I know all of the teams on Ruidoso's schedule, Ruidoso's road schedule, all these teams are planning something either minor or major to help honor Ruidoso, their players, the community, which is really great. At the end of the day, look, we're all New Mexicans, so some other towns down the road like Cobre, which is located in Bayard, and Dexter, and others are going to be doing some things to show Ruidoso that they're thinking of them, they care about them, and they're going to try and help them as best they can. So Ruidoso is a story we're going to be following closely, but a tough loss for Ruidoso. Lovington and Portales played last week in week 2. That is a rematch of last year's Class 4A state championship game. Of course, Lovington now has moved up to 5A. Portales is still in 4A. Lovington went up to Portales, won 30-7. So Lovington has two really good wins, one against Hobbs, one against Portales, to open the year. And Lovington, boy, it's going to be really interesting to see if you think about Artesia and Roswell being atop the 5A division, where Lovington's going to fit. Maybe Lovington proves to be the favorite. I don't know. But they're clearly going to be in that mix in the last couple of weeks. They are off to a really good start. And also I wanted to mention Legacy Academy from here in Albuquerque was playing 8-man football. Teams in New Mexico very rarely get bumped up from a lower class to a higher class. And especially not going from 8-man, which is what Legacy was, to 11-man football. And Legacy now is in Class 2A. Legacy beat Hope Christian, a 3A school, 21-20 last week. So Legacy is 2-0, and that's a team we're certainly going to keep an eye on throughout the year, and good for them. Some teams in the state got to play their first games, like Bloomfield, for example, which didn't get, their game against Belen in week 1 was rained out. They had a big win over Piedra Vista. Roswell, which got rained out, lightninged out against Las Lunas. Roswell got a win last week against Alamogordo. Las Lunas, which was playing Roswell in week 1, and they only played about 9 minutes before lightning eventually canceled the game. Las Lunas got its first game in on Friday. They went to Cleveland, and Cleveland's ground game was just dominant. They had multiple running backs with multiple touchdowns, 55-7 for the Storm, as the Storm bounces back from that loss to Centennial. So, and Cleveland's first 2 games have been at home. Cleveland's going to be on the road this week at Clovis, their first road game. So, those are some of the results I wanted to mention. And as we get into week 3, which starts on Thursday night, and we're going to talk about week 3 in just a minute. Lots of interesting matchups. That's going to come in a few minutes. Okay, let's before I finish the podcast today with talking about some of the week 3 games that really interest me, I wanted to run down our selections, our nominees for our week 2 star of the week. And before I go on, look, for anybody that can hear my voice, if you've got a kid on offense or defense that has a big game, find me, get me that kid's information, either his offensive stats or his defensive stats. Get it to me by Saturday afternoon, and we'll consider that athlete for our week of the, our stars of the week list. So we got 6 this week, and voting has been ongoing. I'm going to save the leader for last. One of the nominees this week, William Braun, sophomore quarterback from Albuquerque Academy. He is a new starter for them. 327 pass yards, 3 touchdowns, and a big win over Del Norte. That was Academy's annual night game. Abron Vigil, a senior linebacker from Albuquerque High, he had a TD reception, he had an interception, 7 tackles, 2 sacks, as Albuquerque High blanked Valley. So Abron Vigil from Albuquerque High is on the list. Tristan Davis, a senior linebacker from Hobbs, had a big day against Artesia. 9 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, one of them a long pick 6 in that Hobbs 4-point win over Artesia. Vince Varela, a sophomore from Manzano, who plays on both sides of the ball. He has a TD catch, 3 sacks, and he recovered a block punt for a touchdown in a big win against Rio Grande. And then Hayes Baum from my alma mater, Cibola, 20 tackles in a loss against Sandia. He also forced a fumble in that game. After Mason Posa, this kid, maybe top 5, maybe top 3, great linebacker, a kid that certainly is going to be playing at the next level. And the leader in voting with 36.3% of the vote, this was as of about an hour ago. It's now about 4:30 on Wednesday afternoon. I checked it about an hour ago. With 36.3% of the vote, the leading vote getter so far this week is Bloomfield quarterback Blake Spencer. He is a senior. He's one of the state's best QBs in any class. 471 passing yards against Piedra Vista on just 19 completions, which is an astounding, yard per completion rate. And he throws for 5 touchdowns, and Bloomfield beat Piedra Vista 47-34. So Blake Spencer leading. You can keep on voting through the end of the week. We put these up on our website Saturday in the evening and Sunday in the print edition of the Journal for people to look at. And so I hope people will get into it. And whether you're a 6-man or 8-man player or an 11-man player, like I said, if you can hear me, pass it along to your coaches, your statisticians. If you've got a kid who has a big game, find me. I can't consider them unless I know what they've done. So be sure to track me down with that. So we're going to wrap up the show. The podcast. I keep calling it a show. I don't know why. We'll wrap up the podcast with some of the games I really like this week in Week 3. Here in the metro area, there's an interesting game between Taos from Class 4A and Highland, which is now trying to rebound from that tough loss to Bernalillo. Last week, Taos starting over with a new coach, Johnny Olguin, who's got some college coaching experience at places like Texas and Fresno State. So we're going to see how Taos pans out during the course of the year. Highland, with Valley's early struggles, and Valley's only scored 6 points in 2 losses. To me, this kind of opens things up in that particular district for other teams. Maybe Highland, maybe Los Alamos, maybe Capital. I don't know. Maybe somebody. But Valley has not quite hit its stride. Matter of fact, Valley's not played good football yet. Valley's involved in one of these Week 3 games I'm going to be interested in watching. They are home at Milne Stadium on Friday against Goddard. Class 5A only has 2 districts now. 8 teams in one and 8 in the other. And this is the only game the entire season between the 2 districts. So this is the only time we're going to see a matchup between the 2 districts. So Goddard is coming off a loss against Carlsbad, and Valley's got to find a way to get its offense going. I mean, they played a good defense in Bernalillo in the opener. They got shut out by Albuquerque High last week in Week 2, so Valley off to a very, very rough start. They got to find their way. I mean, district's going to be starting next week for a lot of teams already. So Valley's got to get their act together. I don't know if it happens against Goddard, but Valley's got to start finding some success because their defense is not going to be able to sustain them for the entire year. There are a couple of games I want to talk about in particular. Maybe my favorite matchup of the weekend is on Saturday afternoon at the Field of Dreams in Las Cruces. Centennial has its home opener against Artesia, and these 2 schools very rarely play each other. Artesia coming off this loss to Hobbs. Centennial is 2-0. Is Centennial the second best team out there in 6A behind La Cueva? Yeah, maybe they are right now. You could make a case for that. They're playing better football than Las Cruces is. They beat Cleveland head-to-head. So, yeah, maybe Centennial is the second best team out there. We'll see as we go along. But that is a fantastic matchup on Saturday. Las Cruces is back here in the metro area. They were up here to play Volcano Vista last week. They're back up here on Friday to play Rio Rancho on Friday night at 7. Rio Rancho, as we mentioned, has won both of its first 2 games. Played Atrisco Heritage, played Clovis. They are taking a big step up in competition playing Las Cruces. I'm always fascinated to see how really good teams bounce back after a tough loss. So we're going to see with Las Cruces. psychologically, this could be a big game for them if they want to get back on track. So that game's at 7. Hobbs is playing at Roswell, and I mentioned this game because Hobbs just beat Artesia, and if we think about Artesia and Roswell as great rivals, which they are, and maybe two of the 3 teams in 5A, maybe 4 that are capable of winning a state title. Well, let's see what Roswell does with Hobbs. Hobbs just beat Artesia. Let's see what Roswell does. That is going to be an interesting matchup. One of my favorite matchups of the week is in Bernalillo. It's a 4A matchup. Number 2 ranked Portales, number 3 ranked Bernalillo. I'm not going to be at this game personally, but we are going to be sending someone out to cover it. These two were district partners last year. Portales beat them in the regular season, then beat them 17-0 in the quarterfinals of the 4A playoffs. So let's see what happens. This is not a district game this time. They're in different districts now. But Bernalillo and their coach, John Kobos, they very desperately want to get a win against one of 4A's elite programs. Right now, that list is 3 schools. It's Bloomfield, it's Silver, and it's Portales. Bloomfield wants in. They want to be considered in that group. So Coach Kobos told me flat out, look, we want to win. We want to prove that we belong, and we want to take that next step. So this is a really fascinating game. Portales' quarterback Paxton Culpepper, who's tremendous, taking on this really stingy Bernalillo defense. So that's a matchup. I hate missing that one, but that one I think will be fun to watch. And then of course we've got any number of other games to watch, and we're going to talk about some of those next week. But that group right there represents some of the games that I'm most interested in this week. So anyway, I'm going to wrap things up. I appreciate you joining me and listening in. I hope you continue to be entertained. You can find the podcast at abqjournal.com. We drop it in other areas as well, such as YouTube. So we encourage you to listen. Any feedback you have, feel free to let me know. I'm always open to ideas and suggestions. Next week, we've got some other things to talk about. We'll talk about some cross country. We'll talk about the Metro Soccer Tournament as some of the state's best teams get together on Wednesday night tonight as I record this, and Friday night out at the APS complex. So thanks for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed the time, and I will look forward to seeing you all next week. And have a great weekend.
Thank you for joining us. You can find this episode and all our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. If you enjoy our podcasts, please like and subscribe, and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us continue to bring you more content like this. See the show notes for a discount on a digital subscription. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading local news source.